television degree. So we started in a radio station, and it started off as a master class, and that was kind of whatever we were into, we had people on. And over the last 3 years, it's kind of morphed into what we do now, which is highlighting programs like Colorado Mesa, coaches like yourself, to get the word out. We're from New Jersey. I live in South Carolina now. Jimmy just moved to Wyoming, so we're big about getting out of your bubble. We want kids to know that, like, New Jersey's great. We love to visit there, but there's a lot of other cool places. And, if your goal is to be a great runner, maybe, going somewhere where they have great running facilities and trails and those sorts of things is maybe a better option. You can always go home, but like go experience, go get some worldly travels and do some different things and get some different competitions. So it's still a master class for us in a sense that we get to talk to minds like yourself and pick your brain and learn about how you do things. But at the same time, we're trying to help promote and get the word out. Like Jimmy said, we spent a lot of time in Denver, so we know the RMAC pretty well. We've had some RMAC coaches on, and we know that Colorado is a great place, so we want people to know about what you got going on.
I appreciate that. And I'm excited to explore all your archives because you've had so many great people on. So probably get into it even more driving around in the summer, but I'm a big podcast fan. So as I start to, jog around a little bit more, I'm excited to listen to some of the other shows you guys have had.
Well, we appreciate that. And it's funny because, we get the statistics and the results, and, we're still getting episodes that are getting downloads from 3-4 years ago. And it's like, oh, someone must have just looked up a coach or something, wanted to hear something. And this one was the first thing that popped up. So they downloaded a couple episodes, but it's fun to go back through the archives and be like, oh, that one's still getting clicks. That one's still getting clicks. So hopefully most of the stuff that we do is evergreen, and, whether outside of like talking about specific meets or stuff like that, the philosophy, the culture building and that sort of stuff is truly evergreen. So
Awesome.
cool. Well, let's get into it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're here. You know the drill. We're not going to beat a dead horse at this point. You know what we do over here. You know what we highlight and what we're about. I am I am HMD. He is the Prince of 1512, and we are joined tonight by Coach Travis Floeck. But let's not forget, this episode, as all episodes, are fueled by Black Sheep Endurance for all your ultramarathon and nutrition coaching needs. And let's not forget, we got a value for value show over here, ladies and gentlemen. So if you are getting any value out of anything we're doing over here, and you do feel so inclined, please give us a little bit of value back. Click on that link, buy us a coffee. We would greatly appreciate it. As I mentioned, Coach Travis Floeck is joining us this evening from Colorado Mesa University. A couple highlights for Coach as he gets into his second season at Colorado Mesa as the director of track and field and cross country. He took over the program in 2024, leading the Mavericks to bringing to the Mavericks more than 20 years coaching experience, including 14 years at the NCAA Division I level with the University of Idaho and Oregon State. During his time at Idaho, he coached NCAA All-Americans, conference champions, and Olympian Alycia Butterworth. And since arriving at Colorado Mesa, the program has seen big momentum, including the men's finishing third at the RMAC Indoor Championship, Teo Casados earning All-American honors indoors of the 200 meters, and student athletes producing 45 new top 10 marks in school history. Without further ado, it is an honor and pleasure to have you joining us this evening. We do greatly appreciate your time. Coach Travis Floeck, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. It's an honor for me. I'm excited.
Well, we are excited too. We want to hear all about what you got going on. As I mentioned, we got some through lines for you. We can make the world a little bit smaller, not only for you, but for our fans. But before we get too far along into it, anything you would like to plug or promote anywhere we can send recruits, maybe parents that have questions, anything you like on social media, the floor is yours.
Yeah, people can always reach out to me on my email. It's tfleck, that's FLOECK at coloradomesa.edu. I do have an Instagram. It's just my first name, last name, Travis Floeck. I'm private, but anybody who wants to follow me, I'll accept it. And they're going to see I wish they would see more fly fishing videos, but they're going to see some of those. But occasionally, post some workouts and core routines and some different things. And then I host my own podcast with two of my friends, the Just Athletics podcast. We're like the Curb Your Enthusiasm of podcasts. So sometimes we go like a couple years or more without posting an episode. But I host that with my coaching colleague or my coaching friends, Chris Johnson and David Frank out of Oregon high school scene. And so if anybody wants to check that out, we have had a few recent episodes.
Cool. We'll put all that stuff in the show
Yeah,
notes for you as well.
appreciate it.
And as I mentioned, Coach, we like to kick things off with our through lines. And so, as we're researching for the podcast, we saw that you're a Southern Oregon graduate.
Yep.
By chance, I don't know the years, but by chance, did you ever happen to cross paths with Joel Gibson?
Joel Gibson.
He's the wrestling coach at Southern Oregon.
Is he the current coach now?
Yes, sir.
Gosh, I don't know Joel. I think the name sounds super
Hmm.
familiar. Um, you know, now that I'm like 20 years removed from college, it's getting a little bit more
Sure.
difficult. But man, I still have a lot of connections with Southern Oregon. My college coach, Greg Gatlin, kind of went away and then returned, and now he's at Southern Oregon doing incredible things. And then one of my best friends, Ross Dexter, is the head athletic trainer and in charge of health and performance there. And so I'm always really have a lot of pride in
Yeah.
what that whole department's doing. And so Joel, I don't know, but definitely still follow Southern Oregon and super proud to be a Raider.
Okay, right on. And then, as it mentioned, we cover across the board all divisions, all associations and whatnot. So as NJCAA All-Americans, that was kind of where we got our start and our foundation. And then as we're researching, with Last Chance U, we find out about the 3C2A and we're digging into that. So we've done some stuff with some 3C2A coaches. And then as I'm digging and digging, and I'm like, well, I never see any of the Pacific Northwest schools at the NJCAA championship other than Clackamas that goes to the
Yeah.
wrestling. And so then I stumble upon this fall, I stumble upon the NWAC.
Yep.
And so we've done some stuff with the NWAC. We've had Coach Steve Delgado on from Southeastern Oregon has joined us. And then Coach Sean McLaughlin from
Yep.
Spokane Colleges has joined us as well, too. So we know that you were at Lane Community College, and we know that they've done some
Yeah.
amazing things there as well, too. So the world gets a little bit smaller. We learn about a little bit more and find out there's some amazing things going on up there in the Pacific Northwest that maybe doesn't get as much notoriety as some of the NJCAA schools.
Yeah, NWAC always super competitive. Sean, I miss seeing that guy because when I was at University of Idaho, I'd see him all the time with Spokane being right there. That's the tough part as a coach. Like when you take different jobs, you kind of leave some people behind, or at least you're not seeing them as often. And yeah, it was pretty special when I got to coach at Lane Community College too. That was kind of like during the renaissance of track and field kind of returning to Eugene at such a prominent level with what Vin Lanana was doing
Hmm.
and the Oregon Track Club at the time and Frank Agliano. And I was part of this kind of upstart Team XO post collegiate team. And the founder of that, Ross Crimpley, he was the coach at Lane Community College, asked me to come out and help, but he had so much going on at the time. He was like starting runner space, which I was like really heavily involved with him and that endeavor. And he was coaching with the Oregon Track Club elite team and just everything. So within like a couple months of him asking me to come out, he stepped away, and all of a sudden I found myself as being like the head cross country coach at age, I don't know, maybe 25. And then got to coach with Grady O'Connor, the head coach there, and awesome mentor and an amazing coach. And so yeah, it was like kind of just the beginning of my career.
Okay, so we got a little bit about your origin story into your
Yeah.
coaching but what's your origin story into the sport itself? Sometimes people, like us, Jimmy and I, it's a family thing. Sometimes maybe genetics doesn't lend itself to us being football players or basketball players, or, maybe we get cut from the baseball team or someone recommends us going out for track and field and then we find success there. What was your origin story to the sport?
Well, fortunately, just so lucky to have super supportive parents. And just, I mean, they were all about what me and my siblings were, any of your extracurricular activities, but especially athletics. I remember my dad always telling me like, "Hey, you're going to be an Olympic sprinter someday." That obviously didn't happen, but they just were so supportive. And I was kind of like the typical kid where I did football, basketball, baseball, but was very small. And yeah, I think the kind of the biggest way that I kind of discovered that I was good at running, besides kind of always being one of the faster kids, was when my family moved to this small town in Southern Oregon when I was 10, and from the Los Angeles area. And that was in Canyonville, Oregon. And we lived out in this valley that was like 3 miles away from town. So like at age 10, 11, 12, if I wanted to go hang out with my friends, like I would just go run into town like 3 miles, hang out with them, play basketball, do the whole thing, and then like drink a Gatorade and run home. And just that was just what you did. At least I did. And kind of discovered like, hey, like you're okay at running distances and so forth, and having that ability. And but it was actually a really hard decision, even though I was like a small kid, I was actually always pretty good at sports. So like when I went to the high school level, I had to really decide. It was a tough decision to decide between football and cross country and track and baseball. But ultimately, there's just something in my gut telling me like, hey, I just think this is what you're going to be best at. And fortunately, I had an incredible high school coach. His name was John Blumberg, super passionate. And yeah, my passion for the sport just grew in high school, and it was kind of up and down career, but I was fortunately able to like win a state title as a senior in the 800, and then when and competed at Southern Oregon, and kind of just took off from there.
What
Coach,
was
when
your
you were
800 PR? Sorry, Jim.
My 800 PR in high school.
And college too, both.
Um, in high school, it was 155.9. In college, it was 152.1. Um, Definitely kind of one of those athletes. I was hurt a lot. Kind of look back with some regrets. But at the same time, that's kind of what fuels me as a coach.
Hmm.
Coach, you said you kind of fell into that job at Lane when you were young. Did you know when you were at Southern Oregon you wanted to coach?
Yeah, I think I always knew I wanted to coach. I, gosh, like how I got into coaching, again, like in college, I kind of always had this idea that I would either coach at the high school level or at the college level. And one one really big part that was really influential in my life in a number of ways is, I attended this running camp when I was in high school as well, called Steens Mountain Running Camp. It's been around for 50 plus years. It's in southeastern Oregon. And like 3 years of going there in high school, I still feel I'm definitely biased, but I think it's like the best running camp in the world. And had some amazing experiences there. But then I was also really fortunate to be able to go back as an 18-year-old, like fresh out of high school, and be a counselor, a camp assistant, and start working at that camp. And I think that's really valuable experience, just to kind of be working with young people, even though I was obviously very young at the time. And I think that really influenced me to get into coaching. But I like right after college, I had some really incredible opportunities. Like I worked for Nike for 2 years, working in their like sports marketing department. And my job was like the coolest post college job you could have. I drove the Nike truck around to high school teams and ran with them and put on barbecues and went to meets and like met all the pros. And that was like really cool. So there was this maybe a little bit small, short amount of time where I thought about maybe just continuing to stay with that company and, be in that corporate world. But ultimately kind of decided, gosh, that's probably not for me, and found myself in Eugene running as a post collegiate, and then kind of had that opportunity. But again, like I was working with my friend Ross Crimpley, and he was starting Runner Space, and I was a journalism major in college, and I was like, oh, do I want to just get heavily involved there? But I think again, this passion for coaching is what drew me to that. And then I would say the other factor is just going to that running camp. I just was exposed to like these mentors, these high school coaches who just had such a big impact on me. And they were like my best friends at the time. And so I really wanted to do what they were doing also. And that's what's kind of pushed me to this career. And have never looked back.
Well, I appreciate you sharing those camp stories because some of Rich and I's best memories are at camp, and some of our funnier memories is when he was the counselor and I was a kid running at the camp. We have some funny stories about that, but
Yeah.
we totally get that experience. You had mentioned, in college you didn't achieve some of your goals, and that's kind of what fuels you as a coach. And I think Rich and I can relate with that as well. And I think that's part of why we do this podcast, because when we look at the recruiting process, we're like, man, we really blew that one, right? So, how do you help your athletes who might not achieve their goals or might be coming in and who haven't achieved their goals to realize this isn't the end game?
So, I think, just some more perspective on that with me in college. Like I did have a phenomenal college coach, Greer Gatlin. He's coached national championship teams and we're really close. I was in his wedding. And so, but at the time, like Greer, like when I was in college, he was barely getting paid and he was like delivering pizzas on the weekend, right? And there just wasn't as much structure. And I think I was somebody who probably needed a lot more guidance and a lot more structure. Uh, and that's something that I just try to do for my athletes. For me, I'm really motivated. I don't want them to look back with regrets. I don't want them to ever look back. It would like horrify me for them to say, gosh, I wish my coach would have done this. So I try to leave like no stone unturned in terms of like the structure and our process. And I really look at my job as a coach is like as an educator, just like somebody who's teaching someone in the classroom. Like, as you guys know, there's so much to this. It's really the process that will determine somebody's success. So it's my job to try to show them that path and yeah, sure, motivate them a little bit, but just try to make sure that they truly understand what it takes to be successful and constantly be communicating with them about that and trying to talk to them about their goals and how we can get to where they want to be and overcoming some of the barriers that might be in place. And like all coaches do, it's just, it's about working with people and just constantly trying to make sure that they have what they need.
Coach, when you were with Nike, did you happen to have the opportunity to run around the Michael Johnson track?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Sometimes late at night with some shenanigans, sometimes like pacing people through a mile, all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
Okay, that's I love the aerial photos of that track, and it was to me it would make like a great piece of art for like my wall, and it reminds me a lot of the track from 1968 when they had the Olympic trials in Lake Tahoe.
Yeah.
Um, so that's just one of our track geek things that we love to talk
Yeah.
about. So it's always
It's
exciting
a
when
special
someone has
place.
actually
Yeah.
got to run around it.
Yep. It's really
Co-
cool.
Yeah, definitely. Coach, you spent 14 years at the Division I level, both
Mhm.
at Idaho and Oregon State. Um, what about those experiences did you learn about building a successful program, and are you bringing to Mesa?
Yeah. I mean, at Oregon State, that was a unique situation. Again, I've been super lucky with the people I've gotten to work with. Kelly Sullivan was the head coach then, and somebody I had known like since high school from Steens Mountain Running Camp and um, getting recruited to Willamette, although ultimately not going there. But getting to work with Kelly for 4 years just really gave me so much in terms of just truly understanding how to connect with student athletes. Something I know Kelly didn't make this up, but it's still something that Kelly would always say and has really stuck with me that student athletes aren't going to care about what you have to say until they know you care. And I think just like on a daily basis, being in that office with Kelly and seeing the student athletes come in and how he would be there for them. You might not always have like the answer that they need, but just how to emotionally support student athletes, I think was like one of Kelly's strong points. And that's something I've continued to try to replicate. Um, and yeah, super proud of like what we accomplished when I was there. We raised $12 million to build a brand new track and field facility at a place where track and field and cross country had gone away for 18 years. And so I think when I walked through the door, it was basically like year 6 for Kelly. of bringing back that program. And it had just been just distance to that point. But while I was there, we started to take on building a comprehensive team, like starting to recruit throwers and sprinters and jumpers and coach those athletes. So actually, like even early in my career, I remember, you know, being at the 2014 Pac-12 championships, and I'm coaching the throws. I'm like this like short distance coach and standing next to like Casey Malone from Colorado and looking up at these guys and just trying to do my best. But I think those experiences help a lot too when you step out of your comfort zone and coach some events that maybe you have to really learn about. But yeah, I think like, yeah, I could go on and on about what I learned from Kelly. He was a phenomenal mentor. And then, but my next stop at University of Idaho, like early in my career, I'd gotten to like really be the distance coach at, Lane Community College. When I went to Oregon State, it was more in that assistant role. Kelly would kind of give me some athletes. I'd get them healthy, turn them over to him, had like a small middle distance group, and then was coaching all these other athletes, like football players who would come out. That was like really fun, coaching some of these guys and watching them in the NFL now, like Brandon Cooks. That was all really cool. But I wanted to get back to like being the distance coach. And that opportunity came at the University of Idaho. I didn't know the newly appointed director at the time, Tim Colley, but I applied and went through the process. And fortunately, I got the call that I got the job and was super thrilled, especially to kind of stay in the Pacific Northwest at that time. And that was a unique experience too, because I walked through the door. It was a brand new coaching staff. No coaches had stayed on from that change. We were going into a brand new conference, or into a new conference. They were in the WAC, and then we were going into the Big Sky for the first year. So it really felt like it was like a clean slate with the program. And I think I learned a ton there from Tim, and then his wife, Kathleen Colley, was the sprints coach. And we all worked together. We had some incredible other coaches come in during those times, but I was there 10 years and I learned a lot. I think, when we walked through the door together, all three of us, we just sat down and was like, hey, like, what's our philosophy? What's our mission here? And we etched out like a mission statement that we stuck to for 10 years. And it was really like the guiding light for our program. So that was something that I learned. Like, you have to really identify what your core values are and stick to them. And that's going to be like what really guides you when you're making tough decisions on a daily basis. And then the other thing I think I really learned from that was everybody talks about culture, and I think culture is super important. But I really learned at the University of Idaho, like our philosophy was, okay, like here are the qualities we want to have in our program. Here are the things that we care about. Here are our core values. Well, if we're going to have that type of culture, like those are the values that we have to find in every person who we're recruiting, who's walking through the door. And so we really took that on where we really vetted people in terms of character and made sure they were a good teammate and positive person and they were a good student. Like academics was really important to us. So we really emphasized that with the whole team, with the way they approach things, but also just finding that in student athletes who are going to join your program. And then clearly we had to find talented people. And I think that's something you're always trying to do, that have the athletic ability. But I felt really proud that we never made concessions in those first two areas. Just if somebody had even run 147 in the 800 in high school, like we knew we could find talented athletes who had those intangibles. And so because of that philosophy, I got to coach these unbelievable people, during my time there. And so that was just a big lesson that's really stuck with me. That's continued to be super important to me. And coming to Colorado Mesa, I just wanted to walk through the door and implement a lot of those same philosophies. And I'm really excited by what we're doing here, and it's working out well.
Coach, when you come in with your philosophy, your concept of how you want to build culture, create culture, as a new coach stepping into a role, sometimes you're stepping into other people's athletes. I don't want to say headaches, but sometimes, you're coming into a new program and you have
Yeah.
what you want to do, but sometimes not everyone's on board with that. Is how do you I guess in seeing, the ability in those athletes, are you able to get them to turn the corner and buy into the philosophy? I know I always talk, sometimes it's like sometimes you got to wait certain things out before you can really get that momentum going. Is there a give and take with that, or is it like this is how we're doing it, and you're either with us or you're not on the bus?
Yeah, I think anytime you're working with people, I've never been the person who's just like, hey, you're either with us or against us. It's like not that hard line of an approach. But I think you also have to be confident in what you believe in and what you're going to implement. And I think it's just about communicating with that. Like when I walked through the door here, it was a unique situation because I was replacing coaches who, um, gosh, it wasn't their choice to step away, you know. And I think that's a really challenging position. Fortunately, I was able to retain coaches on the staff who are unbelievable, like my sprints coach, Tim Reitz, and my throws coach, Jay Schumann. They had already been here. So I think that helps with that. And then I found like this unbelievable jumps coach and Hannah Meek and a distance assistant and Greta Van Kalkar. So I'm really, really lucky with the staff I have, but that helped a little bit. But I think like one, I was also just really satisfied and felt really good about as I met people on the team. I was actually really thrilled by the quality of people that were here. And I think I was stepping into a position where the coaches had done an excellent job, especially with the culture. Now I was definitely implementing changes and doing things a lot differently. But I think it's just like when you're being honest with student athletes, like what your vision is, why you're doing it, what you believe in, that gives them the opportunity to buy into it. And there were times I remember like I was implementing these team meetings that they hadn't really done before, and I'm asking them all to like show up every 2 weeks at 6:30 at night and like, hey, we're going to talk about things. And some of those early questions, I wasn't sure what I was going to do, like it was a lot to like take in. And I'm instead of just trying to be like, well, we're going to, try to make up something on the spot. I was just like pretty honest with them and be like, honestly, I don't know yet. I need to think about that. And just trying to, I think that honesty really helps with that transition. And um, yeah, I've gotten to coach some incredible people here. Did I have a couple kids decide to step away? Yeah. I think like when you come in and it is going to be a little bit different experience, that's bound to happen. So there was like a little bit of attrition, but hopefully, at least on my end, that was maybe mostly positive. I never would fault anybody for maybe this not being the experience that they're having before or the experience that they wanted to kind of want to make a change. But now, like a year and a half in, I feel really good about our culture, our vision, what we're doing, and it's always a little bit of a process, but it actually came a little bit easier than I anticipated.
Coach, are you strict distance these days? You still dabble in the throws?
No, fortunately, I mean, I still like love all the events. I think that's just really important for somebody in my position as a director. Like you got to know the events, you got to appreciate the events, you got to understand what's going on out there. You got to understand what a good mark is, like what's going to score in our conference and stuff. And um, so I still have that like passion. Like I love watching all these other events. I really like connecting with the other student athletes that maybe I'm not coaching directly, but with like 44 distance runners, that's definitely keeping me busy enough. And I'm, like I said before, I'm just so lucky to have such great coaches. I could just kind of let them go cook.
You spoke about having a vetting process of when you're talking to recruits, and obviously you want to recruit the best athletes you can get. What's that fine line? What's kind of that breaker of, oh man, you run really fast, but you don't make your bed when I went to your house for your call, your bed wasn't made. Like, what's that fine line for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think like fortunately, like in the sport that in track and field and cross country, probably the same in wrestling, like you're already dealing with a pool where the the academics is pretty darn high. The character is pretty darn high. So over the years, there haven't been too many times where like red flags have popped up, but there have been times. And I think with that vetting process, it's like I'm always looking at the transcripts. I'm always looking at their grades, and that's super insightful. And, I might even come across a kid who maybe their GPA isn't above that 3.0 mark, or 3.3 is really like to see things. But maybe it was like their first year of high school. They just really bombed, but then at the end, like they've done awesome. And so there's some nuance to it. I'd say on the character side, what really just helps is like I just make it a point and I tell my assistants this, like, let's talk to the high school coaches. And I don't know, like I think there are college coaches who do that, but there sure are a lot of high school coaches that I talked to that were like, wow, you're like the first coach who's called to talk about this kid. But I think that that's really important because you're going to learn so much from those high school coaches about the person's character, like how for somebody to be successful at the next level, they have to handle the anxiety of racing, the emotional components of competing. Like you get a lot of insight when you talk to high school coaches. And then I always ask, like, I'm not afraid to ask the question, well, like, is there anything I should be concerned about? And see what they have to say. And fortunately, a lot of times they're really honest. And there have been some times over the years where I knew, like, hey, from what this coach shared with me, it's probably not going to be the right fit, and just have used that. But same thing, like, I think that the coaches that have worked with these athletes for 4, maybe plus years, like, I also really take it upon myself to not just end it there. Like, if they're committed, if they're going to be joining my program the next fall, like as they're wrapping up their high school season, I'm always like sending a questionnaire to the high school coaches and getting on the phone with them and trying to learn everything I can learn about the student athletes. So we can just kind of take the next logical step in their training and their development. And I'm not like having to learn all that and guess. Like, I've got this giant resource that I can just get all this information, and that will put me in a better position to coach those athletes. And that's something we always try to do as well.
Would you say the quality of high school coaches has gone up since the time when you first started coaching?
It's hard for me to gauge that just because, like, when I first started coaching, I didn't know anything.
Sure.
Like, I mean, like, I've had mentors at all levels, but gosh, so many of my close friends are high school coaches, and I think they're incredible coaches. There's so many excellent high school coaches out there. And I do think that the level has increased.
Yeah.
Because of the resources that are available, and like from what both of you guys are doing to like this, all of these podcasts to I think there's like phenomenal coaching clinics. Like, one of the most important things for me when I moved to Colorado, I'd known Jay Johnson for a long time, and he's like a friend, but I had never been to the Boulder Running Clinic, and I was like, well, there's no excuse now, and went to that last year and got to meet more high school coaches. And during COVID, I fortunately spent hours upon hours upon hours with lots of different coaches over Zoom. We had this group, it was like based out of Portland, hosted by Thor Espenson. He's a coach at Ida B. Wells, and like every week we would do a Zoom they're still doing it. I was on it a few weeks ago, but during COVID, it was like what I looked forward to every week. And got to know some people really well, and have learned a lot from all those coaches. And so I would say, yeah, I think it has gone up, and it makes sense if you look at the performances. I know people could talk about like shoes and all these different things, now bicarb, all that, but like it's also just the coaching. There's just no doubt about it. Yeah.
Yeah, with the access to information, there's, I graduated from high school in 1994, and my cross country coach was more concerned about fishing in the summertime than having summer practices. But I think now with just the access to information, the books, the podcasts, the internet flow track, all that stuff, there's really no excuse to not be a good coach if you're really into it for the kids. I'm curious, when you were at Idaho, were you familiar with the RMAC?
Yeah, I was. Just it's hard not to be because it's so darn good.
Yeah.
It is phenomenal. Like, I mean, I was aware of it in the sense of like, of course, you know about Adams State and Western Colorado and
Mhm.
some of these schools with a ton of tradition. Um, but then like when I walked through the door last year, I just didn't realize just how deep it was. You know, some of these other schools, like it becoming familiar with Colorado Mines, which is unbelievable, and UCCS and just all Fort Lewis. Like, I mean, I could go on and on. Like the whole conference is pretty ridiculous. Um, and so like sometimes like as a coach, I've kind of wondered like, okay, you're a distance coach, you're in the big sky. I was really proud of what we accomplished as a team there. I think we had like between women's cross country and track and field on both sides, we had like several second place finishes as a team at the conference level, but we kind of were always beaten by this juggernaut called Northern Arizona. You know, it's like, and they're obviously like that conference too, like so many phenomenal coaches and programs, Montana State, like it was just Weber State, so many good coaches. And then my next job, it's like, okay, you're going to even walk into like more of a lion's den in terms of like the RMAC. Now it's like, oh gosh, like maybe I should have been, you know, seeking out a little less competitive conference, you know, but at the same time, like I always used to tell my athletes at Idaho, like it's really cool. Like you guys are out here competing against like Olympians.
Mhm.
You know, I remember like some of my guys, my last couple of years, they were really, we go to the conference meet and I was giving Mike Smith a hard time. Like, man, you can't just let us have the 800, dude. Like you got to throw, now Nico's running the 800 at the indoor and outdoor conference championship. Nico Young is like, okay, so like, but then watching my guys, you know, battle them and, you know, be battling Colin Solomon, who he was doing doubles and some pretty tough stuff. But I just thought like when you have that level of competition, it brings out the best in you. So
Yeah,
same
no
thing we're
doubt.
hoping with RMAC here, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we always talk about how you get to the top of the RMAC, you're probably pretty close to the top of the heap when it comes to Division II, cross country, definitely, but also within the confines of track and field. Obviously, it's another juggernaut when we talk about Grand Valley and Pitt State. But, from your perspective as a distance coach, being in the RMAC, knowing what you've got, what's your 5-year approach to getting to the top of the heap?
Gosh, you know, I think again, it's sticking to my guns in terms of our process, those core values. I think that's how we're going to get there. Um, I I want to, you know, it was important to me as I walked through the door, like to be transparent in what I believed in. And although I'm a distance coach, I do believe in having a comprehensive program, and I do care about the other events. And so, and this is a team like I walked through the door and they were second on both sides in track and field the year before I got here. So they were killing it, doing great. But I think maybe there weren't as many points scored in the distance events. So I kind of identified like, okay, if I can come in here, we can keep rocking in the sprints, the jumps, the throws, multis, and I can try to raise the bar in what we're doing with the distance events, then we can contend. Um, it's been tough so far because there's some juggernauts like Colorado Springs. But that's what we're going to continue to emphasize is just having an all around program. And yeah, I'm trying to raise the bar with like what we're doing on the distance events. I was obviously like really um, satisfied and proud of like what the women's cross country team did the last 2 years. Because before I had gotten here, they hadn't made the national meet in 10 years. And that's another thing. Like as I stepped through the door, I was like, wow, like there's some talent here. And it was just a matter of trying to go to work every day and coach them up and keep them healthy. I think it was a big part of it. But yeah, for the women's cross country team to qualify the last 2 years for the national meet, kind of like that example, the RMAC, like last year we qualified, finished 23rd in the country, but we were still the eighth best RMAC team that day. So that just shows you how like crazy it is.
That's crazy.
But it's like really cool just to step through the door and work with some athletes that are new to you and you identify as having talent. Like I was really fortunate to coach an All-American this fall and Megan Hodges. And like she's just an example of as I walked through the door, I was like, okay, like she's done okay, but then watching her run for a couple weeks, I'm like, oh my gosh, this young lady is so talented and she just doesn't even know it yet. Like when I got here, I think her PR in the 5K was 18:54. And then last spring she ran 16:55.
Dang.
And it's just like, I think her PR was like something like, I don't even remember, like 5:40 or something in the mile, and now she's run under 5, like by a lot. But it's just like really cool to work with kids who maybe they're surprising themselves every step of the way too. And so yeah, I don't know if I'm doing a good job of answering that 5-year vision. I think it's just to keep finding student athletes with those intangibles, really talented ones. We brought in like this crazy talented freshman class this year. So watching them grow up over the next few years is going to be really big. And yeah, like another example, I was really proud of the student athletes I coached at Idaho and what we accomplished there. And I had some really talented guys and we did some cool things. And I had some great classes. But this freshman class that I have this year on the men's side is more talented than any class I had at Idaho. And so watching these guys develop is going to be a lot of fun too. And just got to keep finding good ones.
How do you pinpoint that talent when it hasn't been tapped? You mentioned that 2-minute PR and that giant mile PR. What's the key to that?
Gosh, I mean, a lot of times, like with Megan, for example, like she had just been injured a lot. And so it was just figuring out how to keep her healthy. And she's running really fast. She's doing incredible things, but she's still like averaging like probably 34 miles a week, and just trying to, so we supplement a lot of cross training and, do a lot of different strength work to keep her healthy. And then just like working on the mental piece of like her understanding just how good she can be. I think when you're trying to identify talent though, like I think it's a little bit of the coach's eye too. Like maybe a kid at the high school level, I always ask for video because I've come across some kids, like you can just see it in their mechanics, hearing their story, like that they've got a whole lot more in the tank. And identifying that like, hey, well, with this piece, with that piece, you could envision them taking off. And I've had a lot of athletes like that over the years. Remember, I recruited a young lady. She was part of my first recruiting class at Idaho. Her name was Andy Condi, and her PR was like 19:15. I don't think a lot of schools were giving her much of a look. She was actually living in Doha, Qatar, because her dad worked over there. I'm like, okay, so she's running 19:15, but she's running in a place where like a cool day is 98 degrees. I'm like, okay, like, and the more I talked to her, I was like, man, this girl's just driven. Like, I think she could be really good. I remember writing her this email like, hey, this is the place you got to be. I think you could be great here. And it was cool. She ultimately ended up coming and she ended up running 16:22 for me and finishing second in the conference meet. And, but it's a little bit of the combination of the story, the background, and then that coach's eye of like, okay, I like the way they're interacting with the ground, their mechanics, keep them healthy, or I could clean this up and they could stay healthy and watch what they could do.
So, Coach, we are coming off of indoor season. You just had an All-American in the 200, and I believe I'm going to show myself as a bad host right now. I believe the men got third in the RMAC or the women?
Yep. The men did. Yep.
The men got third in the RMAC. What's that like for you? How was the indoor season? And did everything go how you thought it would?
It never truly like plays out to exact script that you're like thinking, but a lot of success. So proud of what we did. I mean, Teo Casados, he was All-American in the 2, and he's a senior and he's just an unbelievable team leader and just so proud of him. It was really cool to see him get his first All-American award, and he did some pretty special things last year too. And then we had Joseph Randolph qualify for the national meet. He joined us this year as a transfer. I mean, I'm not going to go into it too much, but he ultimately like got DQ'd from a protest of a lane violation after he had made the 200 final. I'll kind of hold my tongue on that.
No one's listening.
but super proud of him. Just a phenomenal human being too, and some just really cool things all around. Like watching some of these young athletes, like we talked about, emerging, and I was like pretty pumped. I had, like I said, that freshman class, two of them broke school records as freshmen. Vasilis Salpis is out of Greece, and he broke our school record in the 800 as a freshman. And then Clayton Wilson out of Oregon, out of the Oregon coast, he broke our school record in the 3000. And so to have freshmen walk through the door and do that, it's pretty cool. And I could go on and on about the individual performances, but I was also definitely satisfied with I think when you go to a conference championship as a coach, how you measure success for me ultimately, and I think for a lot of coaches, it just falls on like, how did they compete? Did they bring it? Like, did they like put it out there? And that's the one thing about this team is every championship we've gone to is when I've been a coach here. And I think that's just part of the DNA of this program. They just bring it. They just like put their heart into every effort, every competition when the most is at stake. And so I was so proud walking away from that conference championship. And yeah, we got third as a team on the men's side. And I think anytime with a school or a conference of 15 schools, if you can be on the podium as a team, that's always a good goal to have. But we also redshirted a couple like really key jumpers, and we had a javelin thrower, Isaac Sepkin, open up the outdoor season last week with the school record at Long Beach State in the javelin, and like this massive throw, 225 feet. That should get him to the national meets. So really excited about what we can do as a team outdoors too.
When are you guys on spring break right now? When does outdoors officially kick off for you guys?
Yeah, so we had Isaac. We just saw that, like, knew he was ready, so we just sent just him and Coach Schumann out to a meet last week. That was a really cool way to open up. But now we're in spring break.
Mm-hmm.
Like, gosh, it's like, indoor rolls right into outdoor. So we're hosting a home meet at the end of this week, and it'll be a pretty low key meet, but we're excited for it and get all of our team out there, and then the outdoor season just goes. And the other thing about the RMAC is I think our conference championship is in like 5 or 6 weeks because it's at the end of April.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of D2 schools are like that. And so it goes real fast.
No rest for the best is what we say over here at Airey Bros.
Yeah.
Coach, I'm curious from a scheduling perspective, knowing that the RMAC is so deep and so talented and everything is so concentrated within the state, are you looking to, I don't want to say avoid those schools, but are you looking to get some fresh looks and get the kids some looks at some different athletes that they're not going to see at the conference meet? What's your approach to that or mindset?
Not so much trying to avoid anybody.
Yeah.
I think especially like, for every school, just about every program, you have a balance of trying to like find local opportunities and trying to get some kids to some bigger meets. And that's definitely what we're trying to do. And so those local opportunities are like, we'll go over to Mines in the beginning of April. We'll go over to CSU Pueblo. They put on great meets. We're going to see a lot of the RMAC schools, but it's also just, you're going to get great competition too. And you got to like take advantage of those opportunities. And so I think we're fortunate enough to have so many. I mean, Colorado, like that's a big difference coming from Idaho, right? And even Oregon to a degree. There's so many more people here and there's so many more programs. So like when you go to these local meets, like you can find incredible opportunities. So we're definitely taking advantage of that. I would say maybe the difference is like, although they hosted a lot of home meets, I want to try to host more home meets.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like hosting 1 or 2 more meets than we did last year and trying to get more people to come here. Because I think also like you guys know the Front Range. I don't want to necessarily drive across like I-70 every weekend. And
you and me
like,
both.
Yeah. So I want to try to get more teams here. Plus, like, we're just so lucky that the weather here is just ridiculous. So if we can get more teams to get here, I think that could be to their advantage as well. But yeah, we're also like putting on meets that the team's never been to. Like I wish we could send a bigger crew, but we're going to send a crew out to Texas Relays because we just got some really talented athletes in the power events. I'm like, okay, like we need to get these athletes who are going to be competing at the national level, like exposed to higher level competition throughout the season, because that helps when you're in the blocks at the national meet. And same thing with like the distance crew. I took 2 athletes to Brian Clay last year. Now I'm going to take a whole lot more. And I think the biggest thing that, with that, like coaching the distance runners, is like, I got to find some opportunities for some of these kids for sea level, because you're just always racing at altitude, and that's when you can go and fly and
Sure.
really figure out how good you are. So,
I mean, I might be the only one on here, but I think Vail passing the Eisenhower Tunnel builds character.
no, it definitely does. I tell people, like, I love Colorado. I mean, I love the fly fishing. It's gorgeous. You know, my background here is the Colorado National Monument. That's like a 12-minute drive from campus. But the one thing I've like told people, I'm like, I do not like I-70.
No.
Coach, you and me both. Rich has made me pull over so he could get out and drive, but he also made me drive a U-Haul from Leadville to Denver. So I do have that badge under my
Mhm.
on my chest.
Yep, that's a big one.
Coach, what kind of elevation are you guys dealing with in Grand Junction?
We're about 4,600 feet.
Okay. Similar to
So
like Pueblo?
yeah,
Yeah.
nothing like, you know, I came from Moscow, which was only 2,500 feet.
Mhm.
So it was a little bit of an adjustment. I have made some changes with like the training I've been prescribing. But it's also not like an elevation where you have to change a whole lot
Sure.
or slow down a ton, you know. So it's actually a really nice spot in terms of
Yeah,
that.
it's
I
good
think we get a
sweet
lot of
spot.
benefit,
Mhm.
but can still accomplish a lot with our training.
Yeah. And I guess I got one last one here if Jimmy doesn't have any others, but I'm curious, we talk about you got an athlete at Idaho, but from Doha, you said mentioned an athlete from Greece. Um, what's your philosophy on recruiting? I know there's probably a lot of recruiting battles within the state, but then there's also kind of like a niche kid that's going to Adams and a niche kid that's going to Mines and maybe even Western to a certain extent. You also have roots in Oregon. So are you branching out and looking all over the place, or what's the philosophy when it comes to recruiting? Are you dipping in the portal?
My philosophy is I want to find the best student athletes with those intangibles that I can, and
Hmm.
like I will find them anywhere. I will try to like beat the bushes as much as I can, and I'm not going to have any preconceived ideas of, well, we can't get a kid from this state or this school, or you just always got to try, because you don't know. And I have leaned on, some of my recruiting roots, like I said, Clayton coming in from Oregon, and Daisy Lalone was a freshman coming in from Oregon and state champion, really high level. And so, but when I was at Idaho, and recruited a lot of internationals, and I think that was kind of like where we were having a little bit harder time getting the domestic kids. I remember like battling University of Oregon for a few recruits, and like you just don't win those battles typically. So like that was kind of out of necessity, but also learned a lot during that process. Like found some incredible student athletes and people and different perspectives, and I think that was like a definitely a positive for our program, just to have people with such diverse backgrounds coming together, from all across the world. Um, I think the one challenge here that I hope we're starting to break down is, I think, like in the state of Colorado, there was this kind of just history of kind of having a stigma with Grand Junction, of kind of
That's
just
my
being
next
like,
question.
yeah, like I think it kind of like, so Greta Van Kalkar is my assistant coach, and she ran at Oregon State. I never overlapped with her there, but I was like always really familiar of who she was, because when I was at Oregon State, I would always be given like the recruiting pitch, like, oh yeah, the program went away for 18 years, but the last time somebody had worn an Oregon State uniform was when Carl Van Kalkar won the NCAA steeplechase in 1988. And that's always talk about Carl, who's Greta's dad. But I had never met him. And but when I came here, I was like, wow, like Greta Van Kalkar, she grew up in Palisade, right, next to Grand Junction here. And that was like one of the first things I did when I knew I was going to take the job, was reach out to Greta to try to find like an incredible assistant. But anyway, Greta, having grown up in this area, went away to college. She's come back and she's like, yeah, like when I was growing up, I used to think like Grand Junction was this dumpy little like rail town, not much going on. But she's like, now she's like, I love it. I love the way it's developing. It's turning into this like awesome outdoor town. Like and I think it's developing with the university. And this university, Colorado Mesa, is just like exploding, developing in a really cool way, lots of energy. Um, but I still think like we're kind of overcoming that stigma. And I think that's kind of been a little bit of the challenge with like getting kids from Colorado, although we have gotten some, and um, I'm really excited by the ones we've gotten. But I think we're continuing to kind of work through that. And that's why I'm always going to have to, we'll always probably branch out as well and see what kind of talent we can find anywhere.
What is the biggest myth you have to debunk about Grand Junction?
Gosh, like it is warmer here, but it's not that bad. Like, we're not, the kids go away in the summer. That's kind of the tough part. I think like, I think it was just kind of that idea that it's just like, oh, it's kind of dirty. It's kind of out there, but I don't see that at all. Like, I think it's like this phenomenal spot. This whole valley is beautiful. Like it's it's pretty unbelievable. Like I still catch myself like when the sun's setting here and the sun setting and it's like broadcasting light on the Grand Mesa, the largest flat top mountain in the world. And it's got this like beautiful kind of like violet tint to it in the evening. It's unbelievable. And then you've got the National Monument, like my background to the south. You got the Book Cliff Mountains to the north. Like this valley's incredible, and obviously an awesome place to be a runner too. Like we have soft surfaces, we got trails, like we got places they can kind of just go choose their own adventure. Like we'll go to a spot and I'll be like, you can run down the dirt gravel road for as long as you want, or you can go single track trail, or you can jump on the single track trail and come back on this like gravel, like everything you would want is here. So hopefully we keep overcoming that stigma and open up the eyes of all the rest of the state that this is a pretty cool spot.
Sold us, coach.
Yeah.
Good to hear.
Have you
Couple French
have you
front
ever
range boys. So
I was gonna say, ever say, have you been to Denver lately?
yeah.
Final four, Rich.
Let's do it.
All right. Coach, are you a coffee drinker?
Oh yeah. If I don't drink coffee, I'm gonna get a headache by the afternoon. So yeah.
How do you brew
Big
it?
one.
How do you brew it and how do you take it?
So I usually just brew it at home, little coffee maker, nothing too special. I kind of mix it up. Again, nothing, I'm not that picky. And then I just take it black. Just, sometimes it feels like a little bit of, like you're drinking hard oil or something like that. But there's other days where you can really savor it and it does the trick. When I was at Idaho, I wasn't making coffee as much. So I'd always show up to practice with a McDonald's like coffee cup. And like the student athletes there, like they just got to the point where they would like, we'd have like a dress up day and they wouldn't tell me, they would all dress up like me. And then they'd show up with a McDonald's coffee cup.
Oh, how their McCafe.
Yeah. But I've transitioned to making my own now. So
right on. Coach, do you have any daily practices or rituals you do on a regular basis to show up as the strongest version of Travis Floeck?
gosh, I wish I remember we listened to an interview with a coach I respect a number of years ago, and he said, gosh, like my coaching is like the most organized part of my life. I kind of feel like that. I kind of feel like the rest of my life sometimes is chaos, with my own schedule and how I do things. I will say this, in the last 2 to 3 years, I've gotten so much better about sleeping. And I think that's helped me. I've really identified that because I think there were a lot of years where I wasn't taking very good care of myself. Probably need to do a better job right now. But I was also just having really bad sleep habits. And there's no doubt that that affected me, my energy on a daily basis as a coach, my mood. And so, maybe some of my current student athletes are listening to this right now and being like, well, you probably still need to work on that. But I think that there has been improvement in terms of just trying to sleep more. And I think that puts me in a better position to serve all the kids that I'm working with.
You have any hacks?
In terms of sleeping,
Yeah, what's
um,
been the turnaround for you? What's helped you? Is it
I'm
just getting to
like
bed earlier?
one getting to bed earlier, but I think it's just like I'm always preaching the process with them. So I'm always talking about like sleep. Like that's the number one thing. So I'm always in their ear about it, asking them. And that's probably what has truly motivated me. So I know all the little hacks. I think it's just like you got to create routines, from bringing the lights down an hour before, watching screen time, try sometimes like meditating before bed. I will do that sometimes. A cool sleep environment, a fan in my room. I have blackout curtains. Like I do all the hacks because I'm actually like really motivated to try to get quality sleep. So you name it, I probably do it.
All right. I like it.
Coach, I feel you. The older I get, it becomes one of the most important things to get that good quality sleep. And there's nothing worse than waking up and wanting to go back to bed.
That's probably one of the biggest factor you just said, like getting older. So yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Coach, what are you listening to right now? Music, podcasts, audiobooks? Are you reading anything?
Yeah, I'm always listening to podcasts. So that's why I'm excited. Like I said, at this point, like, I mean, I still enjoy running, and I'm definitely going to ramp things back up to get ready for Steens Mountain Running Camp. And we do what we call the big day there, which is like a 28-mile hike up and down these gorges. And it's like this nice kind of measuring point for me every year where I'm like, okay, if you don't get in shape, you're going to die. So I'll start even running more over the next few months. And so I'm always listening to podcasts. So I'm excited to dive into some of the episodes you guys have, but I'm a big like Bill Simmons guy. I listen to all those podcasts. I'm a big fan of the NBA, so that's just constant. And then I love the Rewatchables podcast on there because I'm a huge movie buff, and I just like will laugh out loud because I think those guys are hilarious, and um, I just love that so much. On our own podcast, Just Athletics, I'm always trying to push those guys like, hey, let's break down like a running movie. Let's do this. And we've done that a couple times,
Oh,
just kind of rip them off. Music, I have pretty eclectic taste, but my favorite band is Radiohead and has been since I was in college. And that was like a shared passion with my college coach, Greer Gatlin. And he'll still send me like Radiohead, this bootleg, hey, you never heard this or you've seen this YouTube, and vice versa. And try to read here and there. It's all over the place. Right now, I just started reading this. Gosh, I'm gonna forget the guy's name. It's called Big Sky. It's just about this like, I think it was written in like the 40s, about like kind of like mountain men type guys like out in Montana back then. And like I like the outdoors a lot, so I'm always kind of delving into that. So yeah.
Coach, what's your favorite running movie?
Okay. It's one that we did review on Just Athletics. I don't think a lot of people have seen it. It's called On the Edge. Have you seen it?
Yes. Oh my
Bruce
coach.
Dern, man.
Coach, I got a story for you.
Okay, I want to
But
hear
go
this.
ahead. You
Yeah.
go, you finish.
No, no, I mean, very few people have seen that movie, understandably, because it's not streaming anywhere. You don't see it anywhere.
Hmm.
But if you sit down and watch that movie, it blows you away how good it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And so we did a podcast about it a few years ago, but I literally was just thinking about it like 2 weeks ago. And then last week I was like, man, I wonder if I could find it on DVD anywhere. And I found it on DVD and I bought it and like sent it to my friend Chris Johnson. Didn't tell him like that he was going to get it in the mail. And he's like, who sent this to me? I was like, oh, I did. Was able to find it, fortunately. So it
Get it
is
on
out.
eBay.
No, it was like on some weird website where I was like, is this going to give me a virus? Am I getting ripped off? Like, I don't even remember it, but fortunately they did deliver.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, I got it. So like I mentioned in the beginning, football wasn't like a Sunday thing for us. It was, obscure track movies, Running Brave and On the Edge and, track meets and wrestling matches and stuff. So in 2010, end of 2010, I moved to Southern California. And so I was living in San Diego County and I was working with Brian McKenzie at CrossFit Endurance. And it was all about
Yeah.
low volume, strength and conditioning. You can run ultra marathons and all that jazz.
Mhm.
And I remembered that movie On the Edge that my dad made me watch when I was a little kid. And I thought, well, I'm in California now. I'm going to run the Quad Dipsy. And
Oh, yeah.
so I signed up in 2011. I signed up for the Quad Dipsy, doing the CrossFit endurance methodology, low volume.
Okay. Yeah.
And I had a really good first lap. And then they told me I had to go around and I had to go back out to Stinson Beach and come back. And that seconds, and I always thought it was just that first 800 steps. And then it was, well, it's not just 800 steps in the beginning. There's steps all over the place on the Dipsy Trail. So,
Yeah.
first year in 2011, I finished 19th in the Quad Dipsy, and it was just absolutely destroyed. And I thought, well, I can do better at this. Like I can take what I've learned from CrossFit Endurance in terms of weightlifting and strength and conditioning,
Yeah.
but I can implement all that I've done in cross country and track and field volume and that sort of stuff. So I went back training the way I wanted to train in 2012, and I finished third in the Quad Dipsy.
Wow. That's awesome. I mean, I know I don't know if everybody listening understands like it's a handicapped and you start at different times. So it's like, that's really cool. I'm jealous that you've run it. Like I've actually was like looking at it like a couple weeks ago when we were kind of talking about it again. I was like, should I pull the trigger? Should I just go do that as like a crazy thing just to have the experience?
So
Haven't
the
pulled the trigger yet, but yeah.
so the handicap is just the Dipsy. And so that's
Oh,
that's just
okay, okay.
from that's just from, and I think maybe it switches year to year, but it goes from Mill Valley to Stinson Beach.
Okay, okay.
And then they have the double
You,
dipsy, which is you go from Mill Valley to
oh.
Stinson Beach and back. And the quad is you go from Mill Valley to Stinson Beach back, and then you do it again. So it's 28 miles.
Yeah, I mean, the regular handicap race looks gnarly because of
Yes.
the terrain, but you're doing it basically 4 times.
Yes.
Oh, and that's not handicapped.
No.
Okay.
It's
Wow. So
everyone starts at the same
getting third
time.
is even okay. That's a really big deal. That's impressive.
Thank you. But long story ending to that was just it was all because of my dad made me watch On the Edge a long time ago when I was a little kid.
Yep. The funny thing about that is like I wondered if you watched the version with Pam Grier or without her, because there's like
That I
different
couldn't tell
versions.
you.
Yeah, there's different versions of that movie. Yeah. So
Right on, right on. Coach, last one we got for you to close out, the lighthearted one. Can be a unique food item. Maybe it's a beverage. Maybe it is an outdoor activity. Do you have a guilty pleasure?
well, with recent research, I don't know if I should feel as guilty about it as I maybe would have in the past, but like I'm just like an ice cream fiend. I grew up, like I said, in Southern California. First 10 years of my life, my dad owned a couple Baskin Robbins ice cream stores. So it
Oh,
was definitely
wow.
imprinted on me at like a young age. I was a very popular child. Everybody wanted to hang out with me after school. And I've just had a passion for ice cream ever since. And but they've had all this research, like almost like actually identifying it as like a health food. So maybe I'm doing okay with it, but I would put that as my guilty pleasure.
Okay, okay. Do you have a favorite brand or flavor?
So I love it when Baskin Robbins went to like putting it in the stores because that is just my childhood.
Sure.
I love like world class chocolate, that flavor. I also, being from Oregon, I think people all across the country see the Tillamook brand and they see the Umpqua brand, I think here and there. And like I went to South Umpqua High School, so I love their ice cream as well. The Umpqua, triple chocolate Umpqua is top of the list. So
Okay, okay. Well, Jimmy doesn't really remember this because he wasn't really around then. But we didn't have a Baskin Robbins in the family, but we did have the Shore Country Barn. My aunt and uncle owned two ice cream stores when we were little, and so probably not as cool as having availability to it every
hey,
single day. But we definitely got to spend some time in and around an ice cream store as a kid, and it is a great experience for sure.
everybody who walks in and gets some ice cream is usually pretty happy. I do
Yeah,
remember
no
that.
doubt. No doubt. No one leaves an ice cream shop unhappy unless their flavor isn't available.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Coach Fleck, thank you so much for your time. This was a great conversation. we could come on here and talk about the rewatchables and movies for a whole nother podcast. So this was a great conversation, and
Hey,
best of luck in outdoor.
if you ever want to break down a movie, I'm your guy.
Oh,
Like, just let me know. I'll come
all
back.
right.
So, but yeah, this has been a blast. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, Coach, honor and a pleasure. Really enjoyed it. Maybe if you want to do Running Brave or one of the Prefontaine
Yeah.
movies, we can get another episode going. Maybe start our own little spin-off here. That would be great. But best of luck in outdoor season. We'll be rooting for you. We're looking forward to seeing what goes down in the RMAC and then definitely at nationals as well. So best of luck to you and enjoy that background behind you. Go get outdoors a little bit as well during spring break.
Thank you guys.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is Coach Travis Floeck. Make sure you go check out Colorado Mesa University. Go check them out on the socials. Give them a little love. Let them know that the Airey Bros sent you. That is it for us this week. We do appreciate you tuning in. We hope you have a great rest of your week. And if you are a wrestling fan, hopefully you'll be tuned in for the NCAA Division I tournament starting on Thursday. We'll be checking that out. And we will be back next week on Tuesday night. Coach Bob DeVry from New Mexico Highlands is going to be joining us. So we're going to learn all about what they've got going on there as well. So we'll be back on the track next week. Have a great